I've got my birthday beer here.
Ooh.
I should warn you, since May, I have had 5 drinks over 2 nights, single shots. I had I had 2 last Thursday and 3 on Friday, and that's been it.
I'm on the rum and Pepsi.
Oh. So where the fuck have we been?
Are you wanting to do our regular intro
Yeah, eventually. Um,
eventually?
I'm just trying to remember when the last episode was.
Uh, I checked. It was about 4 to 5 months ago.
45?
4 to 5.
4 to 5 months? Don't you mean 16 to 17 months ago?
What are you talking about?
Well, it's 2021.
We did episodes in 2021.
Did we?
Yes. It's not been that long.
I thought we stopped like at the beginning of lockdown.
We did, and then we picked up again.
Did we? I
Yeah.
can't fucking remember. I don't know.
And to be fair, this year does feel like it's been 2 years. So
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's true. I think you're
it
fibbing.
is. I checked today.
What was the last episode
Our
called?
last video uploaded was Portugal Part 2. It was uploaded 4 months ago at the time of recording.
Shit, I've lived a year and it hasn't happened. Hang on. No, surely not. No,
Yeah.
no, no,
I mean,
because
I think it was end of whatever, because the previous video to that was 5 months ago. So
that can't be right. Because I haven't done any while I've been at uni, have I? Of course we have. Yeah, because Knobhead was on, wasn't he? We met at uni. Sorry, what's his name again? I haven't seen him for
Tom.
ages. Bridge. Oh, fucking hell! I've started already. Upsetting people. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry. Hey, we might get another bottle or something out of it though, and I'd have it all to myself because you're not here. Anyway, I put a pair of Bollocks up on the After Dark Patreon page as a teaser, and I said, "Bouncing back this evening." ... And Daniel Livingston, shout out, our local fan who is wanting to have some kind of podcast meet at some point. I think he lives in Aberdeen or certainly somewhere near. Says about time. So we have been missed, apparently. God knows why, but
People like
I'm gonna have
hearing
a
our
drink.
conversations, apparently.
Cheers. Mm. Well, oh, Firecatcher. Starting on the 3.5%, not too bad. So, yeah, I have
Starting
been
on the 40%.
I have been doing Better Call Paul for a little while, but I don't know what's going to happen with that because I can't. Sometimes I can be asked, sometimes I can't, and I very rarely have much very interesting to say. So, you know, me. Oh, I can't fart at you and have full effect here either.
No,
We
I'm
should
just have to
explain.
smell your own farts.
We should explain actually to those who are in the audio realm of podcast world thing that we are on Zoom in different locations. Is this not correct?
Yes, if you couldn't tell by the possible drop in quality. I mean, we both have decent mics, so it'd be fine. But
Yeah.
yes, I have moved out of
You need
Finch.
you need some acoustic treatment in your room.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get that.
No. Yeah. So. Oh right. Okay. So there isn't a year and a half of catching up to do then.
No,
Um, I have got no idea what we need to fill in the clientele with then.
well, I did a tweet about this like months ago. But
Did you?
basically, the Orbiter was a silly bugger and fell off a ladder.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's when it stopped. Yeah. Okay, I remember now.
And then I started the process for moving out and was quite busy with that.
And do you know
Um,
what? I think the cheeky cunts at the After Dark Podcast Network actually took the link for Breaking Bollocks out of their descriptions. But that's partly perhaps because I kind of hinted that I didn't actually know whether or not or when it was going to start up again, if it was going to carry on. So, but hopefully this will
basically,
prompt them to put it back.
because I'm now in Aberdeen and taking the train regularly would be a hassle. And I'm kind of low on time as it is. I would have no time to edit, even if I could
Yeah.
edit here. Um, which means that this, which is largely unedited, is probably the only thing that can go on, really, right now at least.
It's funny actually as well because I was I was going to do my usual. Actually, you would have pissed yourself laughing because when I was setting up, I spent ages testing the mic, trying to figure out why I couldn't get it to work. I was messing about with that. First of all, I realized I didn't have the phantom power on, so I tried that and turned the volume up on that, and there was nothing coming through. And then after about 5 minutes, I realized I hadn't plugged the microphone cable into the microphone.
I mean, to be fair, it's been a while since you've done this.
Yeah,
So,
but I have been doing gigs with multiple kind of complicated connections through mixers and microphones and all sorts. And I am supposed to be kind of trained at it, but you know.
it just means you're incompetent.
No, it means I
Welcome to the
switch
rest
my
of the world.
it just means I switch my brain off at times or it switches itself off. But
That most of the time.
so yeah. Uh, I was gonna say, shall we reveal the theme of the podcast? But as always, you would probably point out that people can see it because they can read, although some people can't.
Well,
Let's be inclusive. Some people can't read
well,
for
you
whatever reason.
can get like alternative texting and have like a computer read it to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Um,
But
should we?
I
What?
mean, if you can't read, then you probably clicked on this video by accident.
Well, yeah, maybe. Um, should we? Should we stop and do an intro or something?
Sure.
I've forgotten how this works. That's what she said. So,
Do you remember what you have to say?
no, but what I'm thinking is, would it be simpler if I actually stop the recording and then restart it again? Because then I'll know where to put the break and I can put in the thingy and the doobry and ooble booble bobble. So what do we say? Who says what? What? Say something. Who introduces?
I do.
Hello, internet. What is
No,
it?
I
No.
do that.
Oh, yeah. You've started doing weird stuff, haven't you? Just to fuck with
We
people's
should bring
heads.
back the old stuff for good old nostalgia.
Okay. What episode number is this?
81.
Hmm. I was 10 years old in 81.
And now you're older.
I'm waiting for you to introduce.
Well, shut up, then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember. Is there much of a delay, actually?
No, you're just annoying.
I don't think there is. I thought there might be, but this seems to
You're
be
just annoying.
this seems to be working in the comic timing department.
Hello, internet.
Don't you
I'm
think?
Fireball. Fuck you.
Oh, there was a little bit of a delay there. I was just testing it out. Okay. Sorry. A bit.
You're an
Sorry.
asshole.
It's been a while. I can't control myself. I've only had a couple of sips of beer. Okay. Straight face. Teacher face.
Hello, internet. I'm Fireball.
And I'm the Orbiter.
And
Hello again.
welcome Back.
Again.
We're back. We're
This is
not
weird.
dead.
I'm not sure I like being able to see my face talking back at me.
You had that before, didn't we?
Put funny faces at me.
I'm going to speak of you.
I could
Anyway,
do.
we are doing this virtually today, as we've explained in the pre-Bollocks. I don't know how much of that's going to actually go into the edit, so
Well, we
if
about
you edit at all.
27, 28 miles apart, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I could get a train,
Yeah,
but
but this is
also,
easier.
yeah,
This is easier, and we don't have to put up with you then.
thanks.
Oh, Mum sent a
Anyway,
message. I've got to try and remember what it is.
do you want to maybe leave that until afterwards? Unless this is
I'll
important
try
to
and
the
remember because
podcast.
I had to get it in the right order. But carry on.
Anyway, welcome to episode 81 of Breaking Bollocks.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
The theme is change. We normally, I'm trying to remember how this fucking goes. We didn't really have a format. We just sort of bollocked on about the news for a bit, and then we're like, oh, let's talk about philosophy.
Got any spare change?
So news. There's been a lot of news since
Well, see, thing is, I was a bit. I'm not sure if I have actually. I mean, I've caught up a little bit, but I've been successfully not bothering with the news for a while, and I was kind of thinking I'm gonna have to start watching a bit or listening to a bit of news. But I think at a sensible level, rather than the complete immersion in it that I had before. You know, just kind
honestly,
of.
a lot of it, especially in the UK, has gone to fucking shit. So you're not missing a huge amount.
I noticed the Tories are up to their old tricks of completely ignoring the British Medical Association.
When did they ever pay attention to that?
So, when did you last imbibe news?
Imbibe news? What do you mean?
Do you know what's going on?
I know a few things. I mean, main thing I've been following recently is Scottish government stuff and the German election, which happened recently.
Oh yeah, what's happened about that? Is she still caretaker? Merkel.
Oh yeah, they're wanting to.
Merkin.
I mean, I'm mainly getting updated by my German flatmate Timo. Shout out. Who's
It's not a very German name, is it? Timo.
It's the second most popular name in Finland apparently.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, yeah, basically the SPD, which are the Labour of Germany, but more competent.
SPD. That sounds a bit like SDP, the Social Democrats, kind of.
That they are quite often. That is often a confusion, but it's actually. I mean, it is Social Democrat Party, but Social Democrat Party of Deutschland. So,
Are you deliberately making your pop shield look like a corkscrew roller coaster?
no, it just does that. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, basically they're probably going into coalition with the Greens, who
Ooh, that sounds
are
familiar.
way more popular than last time, and the FDP, which are like the Lib Dems, but if they were more right wing.
The fucking Daft Party.
What?
The fucking Daft
Oh,
Party.
yeah. I mean, they are kind of, to be honest. Basically, because the way that coalitions in Germany work, where it's not just one party that has all the power, it means that despite the Greens and the SPD wanting to raise taxes, to have a full government, they've agreed to just not change taxes.
You know, I just remembered how little of a shit I give. But carry on.
Fair enough.
Well,
I mean, if German politics doesn't have a huge effect on your life directly.
Actually, I say that, but I was actually thinking, from what I recall, do they not have this kind of? I think there's a few countries in Europe that have a different kind of general approach to coalitions because I was going to say, what is their electoral system like compared to ours?
It's very similar to Scotland, actually.
Yeah, which is superior to England, or
Well,
UK
yeah,
in
it's
general?
mixed member proportional.
Can't be a bit of mixing your
I
members.
can't be fucked explaining that right now, but basically you vote for a constituency person
Oh,
and
how you've
a
changed.
proportional person, and they do some maths to figure out to make it basically proportional. So they add people from the list. So in the Scottish election, I know a lot more about the Scottish election. For example, in the in most regions, the SNP got most of the constituencies, so they don't actually get a whole lot of list seats,
Yeah.
except in the south of Scotland where the Tories are a lot more popular, so they actually have, I think, 2 list seats there. I can't remember.
Oh.
But Germany works in a similar system, except it's not done by region. It's just done by the entire country, as far as I know.
I forgot to say at the beginning of this, because we're doing this on Zoom, aren't we? In general, the free accounts on Zoom have a 40-minute limit. They had, with the academic accounts, they had removed that during lockdown. I don't know if it's back, but I did notice that's only for calls that have 3 people or more in them. Apparently, and there's only 2 people on a call, you can have a call that lasts up to 24 hours.
Nice. So we can go all night then.
That's what she said. Pardon me.
Have you missed this?
Yeah, it is strange though, isn't it? Because it feels like a mixture of, because we did so much of uni online on Zoom last year, it kind of feels like a cross between that and doing a podcast. It's odd and weird. Or doing a quiz, you know?
Yeah. Okay. What else has happened in the news recently?
The worldwide news. Well, I've had my 3rd vaccination. That wasn't on the news, obviously.
Worldwide news.
Yeah. But related to that, that came into my head because there was the thing I was mentioning earlier about the BMA. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of that it's absolutely critically clear at the moment that the UK or England, I think specifically, because England have no kind of rules at the moment, do they, with face masks or social distancing or anything? Whereas the devolved nations do. So England's plan B is for when things start hitting the fan again. Is basically
they've been continually hitting the fan since.
But basically, if they enacted their plan B, it would simply bring them in line with what the devolved nations are already doing, which is the face masks and the social distancing and stuff. So Rishi Sunak, so the BMA have said that it's critically important that happens right now because the figures are increasing exponentially again. And even though there's a lot of vaccination, obviously a lot of them will be beginning to gradually wear out now because a lot of people had them like 6 months or more ago. I mean, my 3rd one that I had last week was literally just before the 6-month mark after my 2nd jab. So I've now had.
I think quite often when people talk about vaccines sort of losing effectiveness against certain variants or over time, I think the way that, I mean, it might be the way that the media has framed it or just the way that people interpret that. They interpret that as, oh, it's not effective at all, rather than it's below a certain percentage of effectiveness that is like acceptable for public health.
So it's basically the protection's beginning to wane then at the 6-month mark.
Yeah,
a little,
but it still has some protection for you because your immune system has been exposed to it.
Yeah, but yeah, the BMA are saying that it would be what was it? Some incredibly irresponsible of the government not to go to Plan B immediately because of the figures at the moment, and of course they're not. Rishi Sunak. I saw a picture actually earlier on. Rishi Sunak had come out and I think it was yesterday, and said it wasn't put into law, but he said that he recommended that everybody should be wearing face masks and socially distancing, just in consideration of each other at this time. So it was a
They don't
recommendation.
wear face
But
masks in fucking Parliament.
well, this was it. He was stood, but literally 5 minutes earlier, Boris Johnson was stood there without a face mask on, and they were all like sat right next to each other behind him, all without face masks on. So it was like, it's just bullshit, really.
I can see Rishi Sunak sort of waiting until Johnson becomes unpopular and then trying to get into power himself. Because all Tories are fucking backstabbing bastards, even to other backstabbing bastards.
Wasn't that the first thing that they started saying when he became, is it Chancellor?
Yeah.
Yeah. When he was appointed, I know the media were immediately saying that he was kind of favourite to be being primed for the Prime Minister's role. Excuse the pun.
Yeah, they also painted him as fucking Superman because impartiality in this country is a fucking joke. You know what? The reason that I said earlier that fucking UK media has gone to shit, particularly the BBC, I am pissed off at because under new guidelines, under their new director, who was a former Tory councillor, means that BBC presenters have to be impartial on LGBTQ lives.
What the fuck does impartial mean? I mean, it's
that
not.
They can't take. They can't have an opinion on it publicly.
That's. I mean, that's opinions are irrelevant. It's a bit like science having nothing to say about religion. It's like it's a completely irrelevant subject to.
They said that they won't do that for racism, but for LGBT people, no, that's fine. Which has led to the LGBT correspondent for the BBC, who was previously quite good, Ben Hunt, going off to do his own thing with Vice. Vice is one of the only good UK news organisations left, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Fuck them all. Anyway, that was another thing that I don't know why that came into my mind, but the whole spiking thing that's kicking off at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
That's not good. Although I have seen there are organised boycotts of clubs up and down the UK, girls' night in things, but they should be doing boys' night ins as well. It shouldn't just be girls that are boycotting. It should be and other non-specific genders as well. It should be a complete boycott. It shouldn't be, I know girls are probably the most at risk.
Exclusive to, I think it's just in support of. But I've not looked into it a huge amount.
Mm.
I know there's one in Aberdeen on Thursday.
Yeah, I saw a list. There's different ones in different areas of the country on different nights. But I don't know what one night's going to do. I mean, it might show. I suppose it's an opening shot, isn't it? Oh, that reminds me. Talking about sort of protest actions, if you like. Did you see? I don't know if you've seen about ScotRail.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen that they've been striking every Sunday for months.
Yeah, well, for the entire duration of COP26, I can't remember what date it starts and when it finishes this particular action, but there are going to be no ScotRail trains running in all of Scotland for the entire duration of COP26.
I mean, they should just give people fair pay. I mean, it's a very simple thing. With all the shortages of workers, and
I tell you what, I'm fucking worried at the moment though, because I mean, it's a bit of a wider issue, but it's connected. It cost me nearly 90 quid to fill the car up with diesel yesterday, and
because
it's like it's £1.48 something a litre.
Labour shortages are primarily, I mean, it's being exacerbated by Brexit and COVID, obviously, but poor pay and poor working conditions are kind of the main driving force behind labour shortages, because there's enough people that don't have jobs.
I mean, there's plenty of fuel like being delivered to the stations now, but it's like I'm fully expecting before Christmas to get my first £100 tank full of diesel. The way things are going, But at work, when I'm delivering pizzas now, it's absolutely mental. We've got about half the driving staff that we had 6 months ago. You know,
Yeah.
people have left and they're just not being replaced. And it's not like it's a highly skilled job. I know you've got to have a car, but
And quite
it's,
often it would be EU migrants doing delivery driver jobs,
yeah, I
doing
mean,
HGG driver jobs.
yeah. But I mean, there's a large proportion of the staff there that are Polish. So, you know,
Yeah.
even with the stuff that we've lost, we've still got a fair few.
But
You
for
know,
a fair amount of EU migrants, living in the UK isn't necessarily a secure place to be. Like, they're not really guaranteed to be able to stay in all situations. And so, working, say, in Germany or elsewhere in the EU, probably a much safer bet, even if they could theoretically make more in the UK.
but the thing that that concerns me as well, and this is obviously already happening, and has been for a long time. But it's if somebody like me who actually is in a much better position financially now than I have been for a long time, just because of being at college and having a part-time job and starting to get gigs coming back in and stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're kind of flush with money, but we're not worried about money anymore. For me to be worrying about tanks, because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. Like my placement starts a week on Monday. I'm up in Banff for that. So like on a Tuesday and a Thursday when I've got my hospital treatment every morning, which we haven't picked up on, have we? I'm back in phototherapy for
Yeah.
my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that I have. So basically, I have to get light treatment at the hospital twice a week. So yeah, on a Tuesday especially, I'm going to be driving into Aberdeen at like 7:30 in the morning, driving up to Banff after I've had my treatment, driving back to Aberdeen to do choir in the evening, and then back home in after that. So it's going to be like 150 miles on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And even on the days when I am only just going straight to school and back, that's going to be like 90 miles. So I'm probably going to be filling up twice a week. And if the tank is getting on for 100 quid, it's like a couple of £100 a week in fuel,
You
you
get
know.
like a fuel allowance or anything like that?
Well, I worked it out because the way they do it is if um, you travel a certain amount of miles to get to uni normally, that is deducted. So, like, say for instance, I travel 25 miles to get to uni normally. That doesn't count because I would normally be traveling that anyway if I was going to uni.
Yeah.
And then I think they take another 20 miles on top of that, which is not counted. But beyond that, so if it was like 45 miles or more, and I looked at the route planner on the AA, and I could claim, but I would literally be getting about 3 miles a day back,
Okay.
which is like, it's not really worth even bothering with, to be honest. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, but my point is, you know, if somebody in my position is worrying about it, just imagine like people that are already struggling and have just had their universal credit bonus thing taken away. And furlough, has furlough actually ended now?
I think for the most part, yeah.
And prices are going up all over the place. There's going to be a lot of people in a lot of shit at the moment and really worried about what's going to happen over the winter.
I think the situation we're seeing over the last couple of years is, I mean, obviously there's events that have occurred that have changed how we see things, but overall it's kind of symptomatic of late stage capitalism. We're
Yeah.
in the dying husk of an economic system.
Well, you say that, but have we ever witnessed um, late stage capitalism before, like in an
We've
isolated country? Maybe, I don't know.
been witnessing it for 30 years or so. I mean, it's
Yeah, but
basically since the beginning of neoliberalism.
have we ever seen the end game? Basically, have we ever seen the end result?
Well,
Because
we've seen people be disillusioned with capitalism and trying to do something about it, but quite often they're suppressed by the US government.
Yeah. Which is another thing. I saw I saw a snippet of news that I mean, obviously Trump is going to run in, is it 24?
Yeah.
But he's
I've
just
not seen much from him. It's just
well,
occasional things of like,
yeah.
oh, he did this rally
The
here, or
latest
he's using a new social media platform.
I don't know if you've seen, but he's starting a new social media network along the lines of Facebook, presumably.
The
Do you know what
funniest thing is,
it's
it
called?
got no. I don't know what it's called, but the link for that before it was set up got leaked, and so someone managed to nab the username Donald Trump at Donald Trump before him.
Yeah. No, his social network that he's setting up is called Truth.
Of course, very Orwellian.
Yeah. So and to be honest, I can see him getting back in because he's the Republican Party's basically been pruned, hasn't it?
Yeah.
They're all in his pocket now. So, and they're so divided over there that it is always a case that,
I mean,
unfortunately, the complainants, if you like, the negative people, the people that are on the other side and fighting against something, are usually the loudest voices.
while I hate Trump, obviously, who's actually excited about Biden? He's made a bunch of promises that
Well,
he would get rid of a lot of the stuff that Trump did,
yeah,
and actually has ended up just continuing it or voting to renew it because he's just fundamentally not that different in terms of policy.
yeah. I see China tested a global a hypersonic missile system that's capable of carrying nukes, and it travelled pretty much halfway around the globe. I think it missed its target by about 24 miles.
Yeah.
So, and that came as a complete surprise, apparently, to the Pentagon. So it's like, I don't know. See, fucking hell, I've been fine while this has not been, our podcast's not been going, because all of this depressing news, I've been able to just like, if not completely avoid it, then at least just kind
Well,
of glimpse it once a day and just put it to the back of my mind in the trash bin, you know?
I have some good news.
Ooh. Ooh.
Um, after
Pardon me.
waiting for 2 years, basically what I did for uh, going to the gender identity services, I got a referral to the one in Aberdeen, which its average wait time is about 1.5 years, which is still too
Right.
much, but
Yeah.
it's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
But apparently the waiting list transferred, which means that I got an appointment this morning.
Oh, yeah. Did you go
And
today?
yeah,
Oh, it was
I
online,
now
wasn't it?
have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and I've been referred for hormones and voice coaching.
Cool. Excellent. Actually, no, sorry. I mean, I was about to say this in a really serious tone of voice, but I was going to say we're actually really short of probably the wrong way to say it. Low ladies parts. I mean, altos in choir.
Okay.
So if you
I
get
don't know if that would improve my singing that much, but
no, it was just because you said voice coaching. I thought, you know,
it's mainly for speaking as far as I know. But
yeah. Oh, that's good. I mean, it's I mean, I suppose it feels a bit like the beginning of a long journey, but it's kind of not really, is it? It's just that it's another step when you've been waiting to take another step for a long time.
honestly, I thought I would be at this stage like by the end of my degree, so I'm very happy that it's happened at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
Because I thought I'd have to go through the whole waiting period, which
So have
would.
you just got to wait now for appointments for what was it? Have you been prescribed any hormone replacement yet?
No, I need to see an endocrinologist who
What do they
can
call it?
tell me
Hormone. What is it?
hormone replacement therapy.
Replacement therapy. Yeah.
It's the thing that people on the menopause go through. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
most of the treatments I'll be getting have been used on cis people for ages.
Yeah. So you're just waiting for appointment times for that and the voice coaching then, yeah? At the
Yeah,
moment.
they said maximum wait time would be 4 months, but probably less than that.
That's not too bad. Cool.
Yeah.
Excited?
Yeah. I've been in
Scared?
a really good mood. Not really.
That's a good sign.
Just
That's a good
ready.
sign. Yeah. Excellent. Well, change.
Also, another good news. The other thing that I've been following is the government between the Scottish Greens and the SNP, and it's seeming quite promising on the things that I pay attention to. I mean, trans rights wise, they have actually got a plan now that has dates on it to reduce those waiting times, and also they've discussed things like rent controls and I'd assume things like actually tackling climate change like it's an emergency, because that's kind of what the Greens are all about.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm finding really interesting though? I was actually thinking about, you talking about the appointments and hormone replacement and voice coaching and stuff like that. I was thinking, I can almost hear the thoughts and opinions of those who don't understand the transgender situation. In a similar way, and it's bizarre because to me it's like I'm trying to think of it how to explain it, but over the last couple of weeks in the MusEd course, we've been doing a lot of stuff about autism and inclusion in the classroom, and I've had my eyes opened a little bit to the reality of the kind of majority view, if you like, of people who don't have experience with autistic people. We've had a guy come in with his child who's autistic to kind of give a parent's viewpoint, and obviously I've been quite involved a lot in class with answering questions and talking about autism as a parent, but because it's been an everyday part of life for you and for me and for us for God knows how long now. Well, since you were born, yeah. But I mean, since your diagnosis, at least, it's been a recognised kind of part of our lives. But it's just occurred to me, it's dawned on me over the last couple of weeks how different it is for people who don't have that experience, who aren't around that kind of, not that they aren't aware, but they're not as acutely aware, I don't think, because it's not something they have to deal with on an everyday basis. And I think it's similar in a lot of different ways, obviously, but there's a similar thing around rights. I suppose it's the same for racism as well. If you're not around the people to whom these things have an effect on their lives, if you like, it's easy to dismiss it as not necessarily non-existent, but like, I don't know, there's all sorts of things about people. Some people treat it as a fad and all this lot, and it's like,
you
just
unfortunately don't think that it doesn't exist because they don't experience it themselves.
Yeah, but also because they're not around people that are openly talking or necessarily able to be open about it. They're just not experiencing. They're not seeing it, so it's kind of. But to me,
about the BBC recently, they launched a 10-episode expose into Stonewall UK, which is the largest LGBT charity in Europe, to my knowledge, in which their main revelation was that Stonewall advises governments and things like Ofcom on respecting LGBT identities. which is kind of very open that they do that, but it's not a.
Hang on.
They've been hired to do that, and that's somehow some big
They-
investigation, which I find annoying.
So they're saying that's a bad thing, are they?
Well,
Or,
basically, the thing around Stonewall is a while back, a bunch of transphobes tried to make out that the Equality Act um, protects um, basically transphobic views because of sex-based rights, which it categorically does not. That's just legally it does not. You can argue whether you think it should, but it doesn't. And legal Stonewall won a court case which said that they were right on this issue, and then a bunch of transphobes just pretend that that never happened, and I don't understand it.
yeah.
Like, fair enough if you want to change the law.
I think there is some not necessarily confusion, but what do you call it? Conflation of issues, because I was in a conversation with a couple of colleagues a few weeks ago now, talking about it was actually talking about not you specifically, but about I kind of put into the conversation about you being trans and non-binary, because it had come up it was in a band rehearsal, and it was quite a deep conversation. The singer, we got a new singer and new bassist, and we just found out that the singer is bisexual. So everybody was kind of being open and honest, and I brought up about you being trans and non-binary and that. And I don't know what "and that" means. Sorry about that. But it very quickly became it became clear that one person was saying the discussion was not contentious, but I think there were probably a few things said that you would feel quite uncomfortable with, and I felt quite uncomfortable with. But I kind of see where it's coming from, because it is that these people haven't been exposed to, they haven't been educated about the way things actually are for some people. But what came up when one person said something about, I think we were talking about the toilet situation and non-gender specific toilets and stuff like that. And they said something along the lines of that the majority of, you've got to remember that the majority of the human race are a particular way, that they are, I don't know what it is, cis the right word? I don't know. But well, actually, funnily enough,
if you're talking about using gendered toilets, then I guess binary.
Yeah, binary. Yeah, yeah. So at that point, it very quickly became obvious to me that actually what we're then talking about is not about sexuality or gender. It's about how we treat minorities and how we accept treatment of minorities and what's okay to, like.
Like, the majority of people are not wheelchair users. They do not need ramps. However, if a place does not have a ramp, that makes it completely inaccessible unless you literally carry someone carry the wheelchair up, which is a big hassle, especially if
There's
they
a lot
can't
of places
stand up out of their wheelchair.
There's a lot of places that's still the case, but actually the legislation and the requirement to have accessibility is something that has been vastly improved over the last sort of couple of decades. Back before the year 2000, it would have been.
In places that don't have gender neutral toilets, I use the disabled toilet, which is most places. The only place that I've actually been that hasn't had a disabled toilet, which meant that I needed to use the women's toilet for the first time, was actually a gay bar, funnily enough.
Yeah. It's stupid though. I mean, you don't have a gender specific toilet at home, No,
that's always a thing.
At the most, I can understand maybe if some people are a little bit worried about. I mean, this is not something that is specific to gendered toilets anyway, but I'm not always 100% comfortable with the cubicles that have gaps at the top and the bottom, for instance.
Yes, I mean, the simple solution is either have cubicles that are very separated.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a solution that, because my school, towards the end of my time there, did actually have a gender neutral toilet, which, I mean, I didn't realize at the time, but was actually probably the toilet that I used most in my time at school in its entirety, even though it's only there for my last year.
Yeah.
Probably because I was very uncomfortable using the boys' toilet even before I knew that I was non-binary.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's, I mean, to be honest with you, that whole idea of public toilets, I hate taking a shit in a public toilet because it's just
No,
like,
they have
who's listening?
the door to like the bathroom area, if you will. It doesn't actually have it. It's just an archway, so anyone can see in if there was something untoward going on there, which is
Yeah.
incredibly rare because
But again, I mean, that's
yeah.
that's
And
kind of,
then
well, there's no need for there to be a like a screen or a barrier or even a door because everyone's allowed in and out. So, you know,
yeah, the cubicles themselves were basically like small rooms, which
and the
I really
stupid thing
liked.
is, the number of times I go into a gents' toilet, and I've noticed this in many places, like Tesco and Inverurie, one, the club that one of the gigs that I was in was another. The other, that the entrance to the girls' and boys' toilets, ladies' and gents' toilets, are right next to each other, and you can see right into the gents, and they're stood with their dicks out pissing against a wall, or you can see a mirror over the sinks that you can see straight to the urinals, and it's like, you know, nobody's obviously giving a shit about the privacy of gents in that situation. So why is that? You know,
I
why is
don't
it
get
okay?
urinals as a concept, to be honest.
Yeah,
It's a very weird
it's
thing.
it's about, I think it's about throughput. You can get more.
Throughput.
Yeah, you can get more. I mean, number of times if you go to a gig, you see a queue outside the ladies, and the gents are just like basically a constant flow in and out because there's always somebody starting or stopping pissing at the wall on the urinal. You know, it's like, it's just, I suppose what you might loosely call efficiency, but you just get a lot more people in and out quickly.
Well, by that logic, you could say go piss in a fountain outside.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if they still do it, but I know Friday and Saturday nights they have like these pedestal urinals in the street, and they have had in Aberdeen. I think they do it in other cities as well. Basically, it's just like a pedestal with 4 cubicle urinals around it, and you're just basically pissing against a pedestal. But the
Yeah,
reason for that being that when people are out drinking, they tend, if there's nowhere to go, they'll either piss up a wall or they'll piss in a shop doorway. So, you know, it's like, well, anyway, change.
yes.
What happened? Because we were going to do this on Revolution, weren't we?
Well, I figured this was a bit more broad because revolution's incorporated in change, but
Yeah.
there's quite a lot of things that have changed for us, and also the world is changing, in my opinion. Hopefully, I mean, it's
Yeah.
getting worse before it gets better. Um,
So, I mean, anyone who
but
isn't on Twitter won't necessarily have known about my injury, would they? We
no,
didn't go into any details of that. So I'll just quickly say it was the first time we were able to travel down to England. I was getting a suitcase out the loft to go down to see my mum, and I overbalanced about 2 rungs from the bottom of the ladder, and it was near the top of the stairs. So my instinct was to grab the side of the ladder. And as I did, the tip of my ring finger bent back at the first knuckle and snapped a piece of bone out of the knuckle, and which caused the tendon to basically snap back into the palm of my hand. So a couple of days later, I had to go and have my ring finger basically completely opened up from top to bottom and have the tendon reattached. And then I couldn't move my arm for God knows how long. And I'm still struggling actually with strength in the wrist, still building up. But yeah, if you want to look up any pictures of it, go do a Google on flexor tendon repair surgery, and you'll see some pictures. You'll see some pictures of exactly what they did to me. And I was on local anesthetic as well, so I could see the sausage that my finger is on the inside. Basically, looking at that, it made me realize, you know, we're just bags of meat. That's physically, we're just bags of meat held on a skeleton.
I suppose so.
But yeah, so I've been on. Actually, I'm off. I'm off the opiates now. I've
We're actually
weaned
tubes,
myself
aren't
off. We're tubes, are we? Yeah, I suppose.
we?
Yeah. Actually, do you remember those kind of squidgy things that are like tubes that you kind of try to hold onto and they just slip through your fingers? Like they're like elongated donuts. And you hold them. I'm doing. I'm looking like I'm milking a
It
cow
looks
here.
like you're demonstrating a sex toy.
A cow is not a sex toy. Well,
No,
it
but
might be for
the
some
motion
people,
you were
but
doing.
ah dear, I have missed this. But I was thinking, like, yeah, this because we're on Zoom. Well, actually, it's not working out this way. I was thinking before we started, this is likely to kind of naturally change into just like a chat that we're recording, and I
Yeah.
suppose I'm beginning to realize that's what it always was. But there's a bit more pressure to actually talk to each other now, rather than if you're just having a catch up. We'd have buggered off to go and watch telly by now if it was just having a catch up, wouldn't we? But
I don't know. Maybe.
change.
But yeah.
This is a bit
I
where
see a
oh,
lot of
this is where you
people.
talk all at the same time because there's a delay.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's
just
just
like
that
that.
you rude fucker.
Pardon me.
And the thing I was going on about earlier with late stage capitalism, I think a lot of people are getting disillusioned with the concept of work itself
Yeah,
because a lot of people have been off work and noticed that actually they're
life
a
goes
lot
on.
happier and can
Yeah.
do a lot more without having to work for a living.
The weird thing for me has been that during lockdown, I was intent that I wouldn't go back to the stressful lifestyle that I had before. And what I'm actually beginning to realize now is that it's a state of mind for me because I'm actually busier than I ever was now, but I'm not stressed this time because it's like, well, the choice is I'm either doing the stuff that I want to be doing and loving doing it, like all the music and stuff, or I'm not. So there's no point being stressed if I'm finding myself really busy with music stuff because that's what I want to do. So, but it is a case of just kind of putting things in perspective and like being aware that when you're busy, things are going to go down to the wire. Sometimes you're going to feel like, oh shit, I haven't got time. I'm not going to get this done in time. But what's the worst that's going to happen if something doesn't get done in time? You turn up somewhere and say, sorry, I didn't quite finish that. It's like, there's no point making yourself ill over it, It's kind of...
Yeah. But I've seen a lot of people basically say, well, either treat me fairly as a worker or I'm not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Which is it's essentially encapsulating all the worker shortages we've seen from truck drivers to fruit pickers, where you're expected to do backbreaking labor for fairly poor pay.
Yeah.
And people are surprised that people don't want those jobs.
It is a toxic mix, though, isn't it, at the moment, of having a relatively right-wing government in charge at a time when there is a labour shortage and prices are continuing to and likely to continue to accelerate with regards to inflation. We've got the energy price crisis as well, which is looming its head. So it's a potent mix at the moment that
But you see, I mean, something like coronavirus itself, epidemiologists have been warning about this for years, that the kind of society we live in is ripe for a virus just to run through the entire world. If it's just infectious enough. They were warning about this with
even dickhead Mark Zuckerberg was warning about it
2004, SARS-CoV-2, I think it was.
But we see, because all of that with the bird flu and the swine flu and stuff like that, because it didn't really take hold here, I think everyone assumed that the same was going to happen with this. But nobody took it seriously until that. Actually, I think people began to when Italy went down. It was the first one,
funds for, at least in the UK, I mean, the funds for NHS have been drained. It's been pretty much privatized as much as it can be while still being free at the point of use.
But I did see a thing, somebody saying about this is exactly what the Thatcher government did in the 80s with British Rail. Basically underfunded it to the point where it was so shit that they just had to step in and privatize it as a solution, so-called.
Well, that's essentially what they want to do, because all their rich mates are the people that would buy it up.
Mm.
And then they can get special contracts with them where they get little bonuses. It's very openly corrupt, but we can call it lobbying here because it's the Western world.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I think I'd probably considered this, because it's something I think I remember us ranting on about week in, week out on this podcast. What is it going to take? You know, I mean, going back to the fact that this episode was going to be about revolution, but what? Yeah, everyone knows it. Everybody knows what's going on. There's no.
I think there's a lot of people who didn't quite think about that stuff before COVID, who are now going, hold on, why am I working for someone who is prepared to let me die to a deadly disease just for a bit more money for themselves?
So, I mean, in that sense, that would imply that attitudes of the workforce are changing.
And this is what I've observed. It's obviously from like anecdotal evidence, because it's people giving their own accounts of how their life has been affected during this. But I think noticeably more people are becoming disillusioned with our society itself. I mean, things like going to work itself, not necessarily work, but going to work, physically going somewhere rather than working from home. A lot of people are just going, well, why do I need to do that?
Well, I suppose there are some jobs that have to be done on location, but there are definitely ways of making it more humane a job, you know, even if it's just a case of reducing it to a 4-day week instead of 5 days. You know, it's kind of
I mean, those are small things that improve working condition and actually improve productivity as a whole.
But
having a longer break in the week gives you actual more energy to do stuff.
I get and I understand and agree with what you're saying, that there is more of a situation now where people do feel empowered to say, well, actually, I don't need to work for you. But at the same time, is the right-wing response, the capitalist response to that, putting people in a situation where energy and food and fuel is so expensive that people are basically trapped into having to work as much as they can just to afford to live?
But during a labour shortage, there is space to negotiate that and actually find a job that pays well.
Yeah.
It just means that any jobs that don't pay well and don't have good conditions end up with even more extreme labour shortages, as people just go, well, this isn't worth it anymore.
And what are those jobs?
Well, truck driving, which they've actually responded, instead of letting
well, the last thing I saw,
EU migrants come in to do certain jobs, which the solution that was suggested is, have like a specialist list of jobs.
Temporary visas.
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck's going to come back after being treated like that?
I mean, only if their own country has such shit work opportunities and such shit pay that.
But I mean, the point is, there's HGV driver shortages across Europe. If you can stay where you are and get a decent job in Germany, say, why would you bother coming here when you've basically been shafted in the first place?
Exactly. I mean,
knowing that in 6 months or a year's time, the same thing could happen again.
While there have been HGV driver shortages across Europe, largely due to sort of global factors, it definitely has been a lot worse in terms of how it's like impacted the ability to restock things.
Yeah.
I mean, you notice it when you go to the supermarket now that a lot of shelves are empty, and that's not just they ran out of stock that day, it's just they aren't getting the deliveries.
Yeah. Mm. But it's character building. We should be grasping the opportunity to gung-ho blitz spirit and just dig in and
Oh, you know, the Blitz, where famously people went outdoors,
yeah.
went out of their homes, and also didn't take any measures to protect themselves.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I know everybody's situation is different, but like with mine, I've got so many different things going on. It's like I'm not reliant on any one thing. The traditional route for teacher training would be to complete the degree this year, do the placements and stuff, and then get what's called an induction scheme year. I don't think they do it in England, but in Scotland, you get a guaranteed probationary year in a school. But that's not the only way to do it. So I don't need to necessarily do that. I can go what's called the flexible route, where you basically put yourself on the supply list, and or take bits of part-time jobs in schools here and there to supplement whatever else you're doing. So basically, I've got a patchwork of income coming in from different places, and
That's the thing.
I can
In the
pick and
gig
choose.
economy, most people are getting to that situation. You don't really have the idea of a career anymore.
No,
Most people do a few jobs here and there where they can to make up income.
yeah, and I mean, officially, the company line on the pizza delivery job is that you have to give them a week's notice of if you're not able to do a shift, and there's like certain requirements. But like next week, I've told them I'm sorry, I can't work, and basically they're so desperate for drivers that they're just relieved that I'm not saying I can't, that I've got to leave because of my other commitments. It's a case of now, like, sort of, well, we'll keep you on the books, and like during the holidays you'll be able to work more, but it's like basically I can pick and choose what days I want to work, rather than a lot of time in the past it's been a case of, well, if you've got a job here, you have to be available when we want you to work. It's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking, not enough listening.
No, I feel like it's been fairly even.
No, it's all
You
your
pay
go
attention a lot more to what you're saying when
I
you
do.
talk. No, just generally people pay a lot more attention and like overestimate how much they've contributed, which can also, it can be a thing of like thinking that you've contributed more to a discussion than you have, but also overestimating how much you've talked.
Have I not said enough then?
No, it's fine.
I'm getting paranoid. Maybe we should have, like, those chess timers. Oh no, hang on, we're in different places. That wouldn't work.
You can do an online chess timer.
Can you? What, while you're on
Yeah.
Zoom? They should put a built-in talking timer in Zoom so that you can tell how long each
I don't
participant.
think we need that. It's fine. You can just mute other people.
Oh yeah, I forgot I can mute you, and then I would have to talk. What are we going to talk about then? I'm running out of
There's a lot of changes going. I mean, on my part, I mean, part of why I decided to make this change rather than revolution is, I mean, we're kind of both of us are kind of in a sort of transition stage of our lives where,
some
I've
in more ways than one.
I've moved out and I'm about to hopefully start hormones if all of the physical things are fine with that.
Do you know what related to that as well? With you being the last to move out, if you like, because your sisters have both moved out over the past few years. Now, me and Mum are finding ourselves, for the first time ever, really, in our married life, and we're coming up on 20 years. It's our 20th anniversary coming up soon. Being a couple, just a couple, it's like, it's I don't want to embarrass you, but it's really, it's like, oh, it's going to sound really soppy, but it's like falling in love again. It's great. That weekend away that we had in Glasgow, I think I told you, we went to see Turin Breaks on the Sunday night, and like I'd had such an amazing weekend, just me and Mum, going to gigs and going to the comedy club and going to museums and just eating out and stuff. There was a song that came on and I just burst into tears at the gig just because I'd had such a good weekend, you know. But yeah, I would highly recommend Turin Breaks. And there's me thinking Mum's a telltale because she told Nienna about it. And here I am telling the whole world. I don't care.
I don't think the whole world listens to our podcast.
Well, they fucking should. Why not? They're missing out.
You have very varying amounts of confidence in your ability to be interesting.
Right, hang on. Does that mean I have a varying ability to be interesting? Or
no, you just flip between being, why would anyone find me interesting? Because the whole world should be listening to what we have to say.
Let's face it, I'm incredibly unstable. That's just what it boils down to.
I relate to that.
Yeah. But I think as a musician, I have to be, because you've got to be able to, at 1 minute, be, you've got to ride an emotional roller coaster, basically. You've got to be able to be incredibly emotionally vulnerable at one moment and then really strong and confident the next. So,
yeah.
Not sure how that's going to translate to teaching. But
I mean, are you looking forward to that?
Yes, I am. I think I've landed with a bit of a, I wouldn't say easy placement, the first one, but I think I've been lucky in that I already know one of the music department staff quite well from shows that I've played in with them. They're being very accommodating of my medical issues, like with appointments at hospital and stuff like that. I've been in touch with over email with what they call the regent teacher, which is the deputy head who organises placements and stuff for the school. I've spoken to the head of the expressive arts department on the phone today, and she's really nice. So I think it's a really nice kind of department that I'm going into. So if the kids are all right, it'll be fine. As long as I don't go and kill any of them or such like.
I hope not. It would be a bad first day on the job.
Yeah, but at least they'd know who's boss.
That's how you command respect.
Yeah.
Just fucking start taking hostages.
It worked for Hitler. Actually,
I think it did.
In the end, it didn't, but that went dark, didn't it?
You made it go there.
Pardon me. So I'm going to steer this a little bit back into the light and talk about, or asks what you think about the current situation with the Scottish-UK relationship.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I've kind of been loosely following it, but it seems at the moment the idea of the Scottish government, at least from the pundits' perspective, is to goad the UK government into shooting down their legislation, which has been voted on by the Scottish Parliament, to basically say, look at the UK government being undemocratic and not letting us decide things.
And what do you think of that tactic?
I think it's smart. I mean, it's probably at this point, because they don't really have a way to legally get around the fact that they can't hold a referendum legally without the UK government support. They kind of need to gather up overwhelming evidence that there is significant support for independence.
Yeah. Well, I suppose
which you do by showing repeatedly that the UK government is not good for Scotland and that the Scottish government is.
Yeah. That's the first kind of battle, isn't it? But then you've got to kind of solidify that once you've actually got the referendum agreed or happening, you've then got to...
I think with that in mind, that they need quite a lot of support just to basically have the referendum in the first place, at least legally, and I think they've ruled out doing it illegally, but if there was going to be a referendum legally held, there would already be so much support for it that only quite a significant campaign difference would change that.
you've got to expect that the Tories would get into high velocity mudslinging mode.
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw that in 2014. There's all these celebrity campaigns saying "better together," all this shit, which
see,
a
one
lot of
thing
people went with, obviously.
one thing I'm hesitant to get too optimistic because it's really difficult, especially in today's world of bubbles and stuff, kind of to see the other side of the fence, if you like. But I am quite hopeful that because I feel like Nicola Sturgeon is better placed to galvanise support than Alex Salmond was.
Yeah, I mean, she's more popular. She's
Yeah.
more charismatic.
I mean, this might come across as sexist, but, you know, she's a woman, which...
Well, I mean, Alex Salmond is a sex pest.
Yeah.
And literally the most unpopular person in Scottish politics.
I
mean, he was it in 2014, but
I feel, I mean, that in my mind, there should definitely be a lot more women in politics and in higher positions across society in general, because I feel like they have more empathy generally. I mean, if I was going to be sexist, it would be against my own gender, you know. But
yeah,
I
mean,
don't think I am, because I think the way I feel actually reflects the way the balance needs to be redressed, rather than that I favor women over men. It's just I favor them over the current kind of regime, if you like.
I mean, that's largely to do with the type of conditioning you have growing up, being told what being masculine means. In terms of like a position of power as well, it means being macho and being like forceful and confident, even in the situations where you know fucking nothing, which is why you get people like Boris Johnson who waffle on about whatever crap, basically making up figures on the spot, but they sound very confident and people like them somehow.
I understand. I mean, it's like anyone who can actually see what you're talking about there, anybody who can actually recognize that bravado for what it is, surely must be just thinking, you just making a twat of yourself.
I mean, this might have been, news organizations obviously pick people that have interesting viewpoints to get an angle on something. Otherwise, telling everyone what they already know is not going to be that interesting. So the amount of people going, "Oh, I know he's a liar and that he's kind of an idiot, but I like him. I find him funny." Boris Johnson, I mean.
Yeah, but that's just highly irresponsible way of conducting your life. I mean,
at the same time, I kind of, and this is the same thing with America, I look at what the alternative is and go, I'm not excited by this. Who's going to vote for that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in England and in Westminster, I can see that point clearly. I mean, but up here, we do have another choice, or potentially we will have another choice here up in Scotland.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like what you're saying about the opposition not being any kind of really being much of a choice in England, that's relevant, but up here,
the opposition is also useless in Scotland, even more useless.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'm talking about the SNP as an opposition, and the Greens as an opposition to the UK establishment, if you like.
True.
I mean, I always enjoy seeing, what's his name, Angus, whatever his name is, on the front bench in Parliament in Westminster.
Ian Blackford.
Yeah. That was bordering on racist, wasn't it, against the Scots there? Just like calling a Jamaican by a typically Jamaican name. I can't even think of one now. But do you know what I mean? Angus McTavish McHamish, that guy. You've gone all quiet now.
My brain's gone. Yeah, no, the opposition generally in politics right now is seeming fairly useless in UK
Yeah.
politics. I mean,
Well,
in America, they're not the opposition.
but he's
It's
just
just
doing
that
what Tony Blair did, isn't he? He's just setting up camp in the
he's,
middle ground so that once Boris shoots himself in the foot, he's just ready to take over the same shit, basically.
but that's also not what Tony Blair did, as far as I know. And
Tony
also,
Blair
that
was
was actually popular in the 90s.
Tony Blair was pretty much centrist.
He was centrist, but he wasn't so afraid to take a stance on anything. I mean, the
No, I
stances that he did
suppose.
take was normally, it's okay if I commit war crimes. But, you know,
Yeah, but that was when he was in power. It wasn't before he came to power. I
yeah, but he
mean,
did actually, I assume, I mean, I wasn't alive in the 90s, so I don't know.
I don't
But I
remember
assume he
him.
did take some stances that made him,
I don't remember him coming across as particularly strong. He seemed like a bit of a wet blanket at first, but it was up against, well, at the time it was John Major, wasn't it? So it
yeah.
was kind of Maggie Thatcher had been what she was. Actually, John Major, as
I
conservatives
mean,
go, was fairly reasonable, but he was
if you
just
think like
grey.
Tony Blair had charisma and likability from being able to like compromise and stuff, and that Jeremy Corbyn had principles. Keir Starmer has neither, so I don't understand what the fucking point of him is. They keep going on about electability and they keep losing elections.
I don't know why Jeremy Corbyn just doesn't set up his own party.
Because I mean,
I suppose he had one,
generally
but
split off parties haven't really gone that well in recent years. I mean, the main ones that have gone well are the ones that are basically just the Nigel Farage party rebranded 5 times.
yeah. Is anyone still watching GB News? By the way, I notice it's still in the TV guide.
Oh no, the guy that set it up, Andrew Neil, another BBC reporter who was just a Tory politician at one point. He left BBC to go set up GB News, left because it was so bad.
Yeah,
It is now basically. Have you heard of InfoWars?
I have. Yeah,
It's basically that, but British, which is infinitely worse.
I mean, it's that's kind of entering dangerous territory because it's kind of in the vein of the sort of stuff that people might watch just to see how bad it is, just for entertainment rather than for news.
I mean, it's a propaganda network.
Yeah.
They claim, I mean, this is always the thing with right wingers that they want to like remove bias from media, and that just means basically making everything an opinion program where it's shut up about racism and praise the Queen. If you kneel at a sports game, that means that you're unpatriotic and you hate the country.
I want
I
to
mean, I
meet
am patriotic and I hate the country, but
I want to meet people that say things like that and just go, why? And just everything they say, just go, but why? 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 Because they just don't have reasonable answers to the opinions they hold.
I mean, the UK media across the board is bad. The right wing media is particularly bad for various things. I mean, the one. I mean, I'm talking about coverage on trans rights mainly because it's just awful across the board, except for Vice News and Pink News, which is a specifically LGBT news organization. Those are the only ones I actually trust to give actual accurate reporting. That's not just basically giving a mouthpiece to transphobes who have no actual expertise on the subject,
Yeah.
but speak very loudly about it and complain about being cancelled, even though they're in all the national newspapers.
I mean, it's. I wonder whether or not a lot of this stuff is something we just have to. I don't say have to, but will end up having to wait for it to seep into society at large, because it seems to me that at uni there's a lot of attention being given to changing the narrative, but that's quite a closed world, and it's got to have time to go out into wider society in the form of educators and professionals taking that attitude
So
elsewhere.
recently, there's been controversy over. There's basically, I mean, I don't know the specifics behind the story, so I wouldn't jump to call them a transphobe, but basically a professor at, I think, Sussex University, who's created kind of a hostile environment for trans students. And it's sort of, universities are actually where ideas thrive and progress are made, I think, because a bunch of people with bright ideas for how to change the world in all fields get together and go, I want to learn more.
Well, I don't know if you are getting this or if it's something that's specifically been brought up in the education course, but there's this concept that we've had repeated to us a few times that when the adults change, the world changes.
Yeah, but who's the adults in this situation?
Well, exactly. That is what we're being kind of instilled with as teachers, in that in a school environment, we're going to be the adults. So for the kids, it's the teachers that have to change in order for the school to change, if you like. It's no good, like in society, it's no good the universities, all the students and that having the right ideas.
I mean, I hear lots of stories where people talk about relatively young kids or like preteens asking people's pronouns when they introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Which is a really great thing, but
adults need to be doing that.
If I saw someone do that, like a middle-aged person do that, I would be really taken aback and be like, are you?
Yeah, but you shouldn't be, though. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a situation where that's necessary.
But again, that is related. That is related to what I was saying earlier about they're just not used to being around that concept, which is why there's such a difficulty in understanding it and accepting it, because they just don't have experience with it. They, it's like an alien concept.
It's kind of like a side issue of like, it seems very distant, I guess, to a lot of people.
And it's easier in that situation to claim and to believe that actually that situation doesn't exist because I've never experienced it, than it is to perhaps accept that actually it's always been around me, but people have been too scared or not felt safe enough to actually reveal it to me.
Well, I noticed that it's sort of a defensive mechanism when it comes to criticizing institutions that they like, that they trust, or even the worlds that they grew up in, as being not the greatest. I mean, still not the greatest in terms of minority rights, to say the least. But things like when people say the police as an institution are fundamentally racist, a lot of people have a kind of gut reaction of, what do you mean I trust the police?
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose it's because it's been made more specific than, because I mean, I would say that the world in general is institutionally racist, but I suppose when you're narrowing it down, it becomes not more personal, but it feels as though it's more targeted.
I mean, even like vague things like saying the UK, like institutional racism is a serious problem in the UK, which is statistically measurable, and it's a significant factor in people's lives in the UK, institutional racism, in any way that you could really identify it. But certain nationalists would go, well, if you say the UK is racist, you're saying that the UK as a country is racist. Personally, I think it kind of is, but you're attacking an institution that they are proud of, I guess.
Yeah.
And so instead of going, oh, I want to change that, they go, well, actually, no, it's not, because it's a lot easier not to change anything.
But
and pretend it's not a problem.
I just don't get that mentality. That I suppose that is the essence of conservatism, isn't it? It's like, what would the world be like if nothing changed?
It's a sort of ideological laziness.
But that's the essence of what they're saying, is like that we don't want anything to change. And it's like, well, if that were the case, we'd still be living in caves. We wouldn't even be in caves. We'd just be in a vent somewhere in a submarine volcanic vent somewhere.
I mean, the true reasoning behind at least certain conservatives not wanting anything to change is that the current system works for them specifically as individuals. No, I'm not talking about Tory voters, I'm talking about Tory politicians here.
Yeah.
A lot of Tory voters vote against their own interests very freely.
It's just not natural, though. I mean, this idea of resisting change is not natural. It's like denying that evolution exists. Essentially, that's what it is, isn't it? Because evolution is not just a biological concept. It's a whole, evolution of societies. It's kind of
describes change over time, essentially.
Yeah.
And I suppose in the way that we'd quite often see it, talking about macroevolution, is talking about large changes, which in biological time needs a large amount of time, unless you're dealing with things that have a very short lifespan and breed very quickly, like bacteria.
I would say that I not necessarily agree with, but can at least understand the reasoning behind the concept of applying the brakes to change, so as not to, to this whole idea of like sort of taking ethics into account and slowing down the rate of change to make sure that we take things under consideration properly when things are changing. I can at least understand that viewpoint, but I think what worries me about that is that it's a bit like when you think of tectonic activity, things are moving, whether you like it or not. And if something gets in the way to stop something from moving when it feels that it naturally should, pressure builds up until you get like a volcanic eruption or an earthquake. It's like there's going to be, if you resist natural processes of change in any way, it's going to surely build pressure until there's a breaking point. And I think that's a far more dangerous thing than allowing things to change at an appropriate rate as they should and they want to.
And the thing with humans is, although we are obviously, being animals, part of nature, we have kind of more influence than any other species on the planet, really, any individual species. Possibly more than any group of animals. We have more effect on the planet in terms of, carbon emissions is just one facet of that, but also being able to destroy habitats en masse, which most species, they might be able to cause a small fire sometimes, but beyond that, it's not on an industrial scale.
It is a uniquely, I wouldn't necessarily say scary prospect, but something that should be respected, I think, because one of the things that really struck me looking around the Kelvin Grove Museum over the weekend was the kind of ancient history exhibits going back as far as sort of dinosaurs and going right back to, it was pretty vague past when you get past the Precambrian.
Yeah.
But from that point on, the timelines on the exhibits that were sort of showing, the Jurassic period and the Cretaceous period. I'm not getting them in the right order. I apologize, but
you did actually.
Did I? But there were, all these several periods that are lasting like hundreds of thousands of years, and then you look at where humankind, came onto the scene and how recently we've been around, and the amount of impact that we've had in that time.
And this is the thing, geological processes, which those periods are based on geological time rather than biological events. Biological events are categorized into them for ease, but generally those periods last about 50 million years,
Yeah.
which is more than, well, actually, mammals, I mean, mammals were around during the Jurassic, but the mammals that grew into all the mammals we see today kind of started diversifying around 50 million years ago.
Yeah. Mm.
And so, I mean, the Earth's been around for 4.6 billion years, roughly.
Right.
About 3 billion years of that, there was mainly cells and stuff.
So do you think it's fair to say that we are currently experiencing and actively taking part in the most rapid period of change this planet has ever seen?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't be able to say that precisely, but
Obviously, there'll be specific events, perhaps during the bombardment periods, where things like things hitting the planet will have had a quite drastic effect straight away. But in general, kind of overall terms,
if you're
the
talking
rate
about
of
like,
change.
yeah, things like change in the atmosphere, yeah.
Mm.
This is something I was actually explaining a while ago to my granddad on mum's side,
Yeah.
Because he had said about the classic thing of, oh, well, climate change is always happening. It's happened over millions and millions of years. The
Mm.
climate is always changing, which is true.
Yeah.
But also, it's happening a lot more rapidly than we've ever seen it on any recorded measure, as far as
Yeah.
I know.
Mm.
Normally those processes would happen over thousands, if not millions of years, and it's happened over the space of around 100 years, actually less than that if you go from like the 50s.
I would say that possibly, well, definitely means that perhaps this is not perhaps. I'm keep putting in words that shouldn't necessarily be there, but I think this is one situation where there is justification in fear of the unknown.
I mean, we have models that predict. We have very fleshed out. We kind of know what's going to happen. It's kind of difficult to know past a certain point, but we have.
Mm.
I mean, if anything, the models that we came up with previously underestimated just how bad it would be at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which kind of means that we're heading in a very bad direction, given that most of the dates that people put on these, I mean, 2030 is one of the earliest ones, which is okay, like that is action.
Mm.
But 2050 is what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
And by then, the catastrophic level of climate change that scientists are warning about will have already happened. I mean, it's already happened.
Well, I mean,
today.
This is something which I believe necessitates a coordinated front, because what I was talking about earlier about being worried about the price of diesel going up so quickly, obviously the best line of defense for anyone when fuel prices are rising is to get, and assuming that electricity is not subject to the same price rises depending on how it's produced, but to get an electric car
prices as well. So
yeah,
but also electric cars aren't necessarily 100% of the problem. I mean, we focus on things that it seems easy to change.
But what I'm trying to say is that I would personally, and a lot of people in my kind of salary bracket, whatever you want to call it, would love to be able to afford to go cleaner.
But actually, if you produce a new car from scratch, that ends up being, if you have a efficient car right now that's diesel, getting a brand new electric car, because of the production that is required for that, and also you require the electricity in wherever you are to be gained from renewable sources, which is good in Scotland because we actually have enough wind power to power Scotland twice now.
So essentially, I mean, what I've kind of come to the conclusion, I think, with this car that I've got at the moment is that I'm basically going to accept that it's a workhorse car. I have to drive lots of miles. I have to get gear around the place. I'm not really going to, I mean, there's a couple of scuffs on it that I was thinking about getting fixed up, but it's like, well, it's not really a lot of point because I'm just going to keep it on the road for as long as it's financially viable to do that, and it's not costing too much to repair. Just keep it going as long as I can. Not that I have much choice anyway at the moment, but you know what I mean. That's not environmentally unfriendly compared to actually just switching to a new electric car now.
I mean, and then there's a bunch of things that never get mentioned when talking about climate change that are actually much more damaging, like the actual building of roads.
Yeah.
Ends up putting out ridiculous amounts of, I mean, I think it's just like 2 meters of road is about the same amount of carbon that it takes to produce an entirely new car.
Yeah.
And
which is why it's ridiculous that we're in a situation where the entire country's rail network is going to shut down while the climate change conference is here.
Well, that's based on the shitty behavior of ScotRail.
Yeah.
Because it's a privatized rail industry.
The thing is, as well, I mean, over the last few years, they've been very close to having been taken over by the Scottish government because of their appalling record on their service.
Run by the Dutch government, funnily enough.
All right, okay.
But I was talking to Tina as well, because a lot of trains in the UK are run by the German government. But the main German train, Deutsche Bahn, is privatized.
Okay.
So you've got this weird situation where foreign governments run our railways privately, but don't actually run their own ones. I mean, I don't know if the Dutch government owns its own railways.
Well. So what change do we want to see? What change do we need to see?
Pedestrianisation. Stop basing cities around cars.
Did you see?
I did see a thing where there's bad for the environment.
There's talk of bringing back the Aberdeen tram network.
Oh, I love trams.
But
is the one in Edinburgh still going?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It took a lot longer to build, I think, than they were expecting it to, and it cost a lot more. But yeah, it's still there.
But I mean, I think like on a local level in Aberdeen, people around the world won't appreciate this, but so one of the main streets in Aberdeen is Union Street. Funnily enough, I kind of think like with the Union Street and Union Square thing, is that named after the Union of the United Kingdom?
I think so, yeah.
Kind of a propaganda thing almost.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be the place to do it because it was the oil capital of Europe, wasn't it?
Yeah. So. A half of Union Street is pedestrianised now. They've blocked off half of Union Street, and it's lovely. You can just walk there freely. Yeah. It's great.
Is it William Wallace as a statue of halfway up Union Street as well, or is it
Robert the Bruce?
Robert the Bruce, yeah. I knew it was somebody very Scottish.
Yeah.
What the fuck is a Bruce? I thought they were Australian. How is Robert the Bruce? Well, it's like, well, he's not a Robert then if he's a Bruce.
I'm not sure. That might be his surname.
Or maybe.
Or his house.
Maybe he said whenever he turned up, he would go, "Nice to see you. To see you."
I don't think they'd heard of that in the 1300s.
Have you heard of that?
Yes.
How? Bruce Forsyth hasn't done he hasn't done the generation game in fucking decades.
Yes, but it's a pop culture reference that carries on past its use. Old people reference it.
Are you calling me old, you cunt?
You're 50 now, I can call you old.
Oh yeah, we never mentioned that, did we? It was my birthday last week or the week before. It was sometime.
I mean, it's kind of like
a couple of weeks ago.
You know, surnames like DeSanta or something.
Who the fuck's that?
Well, like surnames that have like "de" like in them. So,
what the hell's that got to do with Bruce Forsyth?
No, Robert the Bruce, because that would be the.
So yeah, but "de" means of. De
Well, yeah,
Santos is of Santos. So that's
so
where they're
you're a
from.
Robert of Bruce.
Well, the doesn't mean of.
Well, in this case, it kind of does.
No, because he's not from somewhere called Bruce, is he?
Well, no, I think he's of the house Bruce. I'm not sure.
Okay. I know somebody with Forsyth as a surname. I wonder if she's related, actually. I'll have to ask her.
Yes, his name is just Robert Bruce.
Oh, so why did you call him the Bruce? And why does anyone call him the Bruce?
Well, because it comes from de, so Robert de Bruce, and then that gets
No, the.
anglicized into Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, but his name's Robert Bruce, not Robert de Bruce. You said.
Well, it would have been something different because the English language was not really a thing in Scotland at his time.
I thought
It was
I thought all the landowners were
in Scots. It
Northumbrian
would have been something like
lords and
Robert
stuff.
Bruce.
Okay. I don't trust people that have two first names.
What?
Well, Robert Bruce is like, have you not got a surname?
Well, Bruce is the same.
You used to have a teacher with a Bruce surname, didn't you?
Yes, I've not seen him in a long, long time.
Him?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of the old lady. Was her name Bruce?
Can't remember.
I feel like this conversation's running its course.
I'm tentatively hopeful about changing the world for once.
Yeah, as always, though, it's kind of a case that there's going to be fight back.
Have you seen the stories about John Deere recently? I think this is in America.
The tractor maker.
Yes.
No, go on.
Basically, a bunch of union workers for them went on strike.
Yeah.
Which meant that their non-unionized office workers were instead contracted, instead of doing office work, to do the sort of unionized work that meant back-breaking labor, that sort of stuff, including things like operating forklifts, that sort of thing. On the first day, one of them crashed a forklift and they had to call an ambulance.
Okay.
More recently, one of them tried to threaten one of the union workers striking by driving a truck of flammable material at way too high a speed while attempting to flip them off. But as they took their hands off the steering wheel, they just crashed and nearly killed themselves.
Sorry, that's funny as fuck. Oh dear.
Which means they've basically gone, okay, I'm not going to give in to union demands. I'm going to just let the non-union workers do extremely dangerous work. By the way, on the subject of unions, if you are renting and you are not part of a renters union, join one.
Why?
Because it will protect your rights from scummy landlords.
My landlord is the local council.
I mean, you're in a council place, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to me specifically there.
Yes. If you are renting, which most people are these days,
yeah.
Then you will be a lot more protected from things like landlords screwing you over than the government will protect you, because a bunch of people can get together and well, yeah. I mean, I'm part of Living Rent.
What? Living Rent?
Yeah, it's a renters union.
Ah. Cool. I suppose I'll have to think about whether or not I need to join a teaching union at some point. I mean, I'm already in the Incorporated Society of Musicians, which has, I believe, like a teaching kind of side to it. But that'll do me no good if if one of the teaching unions goes on strike, I won't be able to.
Unions have largely been demonized in UK and the US
by the governments.
by governments bought out by corporations, essentially.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, the US is extremely pro-employer.
I don't care if they're demonized or not. I'm a worker.
Well, yeah.
All my rights protected.
Union membership is a lot higher in other European countries because it's just assumed as a standard that you're better off if you have people like you that can fight for your interests rather than just trusting the system that is based on making money off of you.
Yeah. Well, apart from anything else, I mean, it makes sense because you've got legal representation if you need it. You know, the number of times, or not that many times, but there have been times when, as a musician, I've had to get the legal department to just something as simple as writing a letter for you. Which does the trick because people then tend to think, oh shit, they've got legal representation. We better do what we're supposed to do. You know,
there's a lot of particularly US corporations that have spent a lot of money on trying to basically use propaganda against unions.
So going forward, this here podcast thingy, did we say we were going to be bringing back Breaking Borders as well?
Yes.
I don't know what our schedule was.
When I have time to actually research stuff.
Yeah, but, I mean, I suppose
you want to do this every 2 weeks.
When you say this, you mean one of the podcasts every 2 weeks? Yeah. So, I mean, like, generally, I would say for me, I don't know about you, but obviously it's going to change at times. But generally, a Sunday is probably best for me. And as I say, if we can aim to be finished by 9, because I'll be up early for school on Monday morning, that would suit me best. But if we're in a situation where we don't have time to prepare for a Breaking Borders, we can always just shuffle things about a bit and make sure one of the two goes out every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. So for Breaking Borders, the next country we're looking at is South Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
If I don't have time to do sufficient research for that, by the time we next do a recording, we can just do an episode in Bollocks.
Yeah. So what would we say the next one would be like 2 weeks on Sunday? Because what is it now? What day is it? Thursday. Do you want to make it 2 weeks on Sunday?
For a recording, I guess.
That would be...
That's Halloween, actually, isn't it?
Is it? No, that would be the week after Halloween.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yes, but will we put these out on a Thursday generally? Do you think?
Well, we have done in the past, but to be honest, I'm happy to just bang them out when they're done.
Okay, sure.
If you're happy with that. I mean, I think we've long since kind of past the point where we have to worry about whether or not we have a regular schedule so that we get loads of engagement and fans and stuff.
Yeah.
People just
do this for the sake of it.
Yeah. Let's just do it and bang it out. Because the problem is, I mean, I could edit it together and stuff but at the end of the day, there's nothing we're really waiting for, is there?
Nah.
And actually, the news stuff will be more up to date anyway.
Just going to general channel stuff. In terms of other videos that we would have normally done,
you might get a couple of holiday specials once a year or something.
Yeah,
Christmas.
For now, gaming videos, especially at the frequency we're doing them, are just not feasible, and I can't really see a way that they'd be feasible in the foreseeable future. I mean, so that means, I actually finished one of my series. And then there is the first episode of another one that's just not been edited.
Right.
But
it's probably on a drive somewhere here.
Probably. And that shadowed the process. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy with that being my last series because that is a superb game to finish on.
Right.
And then for our series together, we did The Sims, which I don't know if we really had a satisfying conclusion to, but it doesn't really end The Sims.
Yeah. Well, I mean, um, as I say, we might once or twice a year, like in the Christmas or Easter or summer or whatever, we might get a chance to just do one-off episodes. But the channel's always there. So if at any point in the future either of us decide that we want to, for a hobby, throw something together, you might find yourself in a situation where you're a bit more equipped when you're rich and famous.
I mean, I have more money to spend on recording equipment than you, to be honest.
Yeah, but I've got more recording equipment than you have money.
Okay, fair. You don't really need like a fancy setup to do most things.
You don't, but I do have anyway. So yeah, that's just up in the air, isn't it? But we'll just try and keep the channel open by doing these. I mean, people are still watching the YouTube videos, the gaming stuff, and
Yeah, they're not going away anytime. It's just we don't really have the ability to produce them, and if we tried to, we would end up probably
I suppose there
falling out and getting very stressed in the process, like we have done before.
I suppose there is the option, because I mean, doing this now as a podcast, it seems to be quite easy just doing it remotely because we've kind of just gone with what's possible and what's practical. I suppose there's nothing to say that we can't necessarily at some point look into maybe doing a joint, even if it's not a live stream, just a joint gaming session that I capture or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I bought you Civ 6, so we might as well play that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got the software and the equipment to do it. I mean, to kind of do. I mean, people do that, don't they? Remote live streaming games and stuff.
Yeah.
So we can look into that at some point. But for now, the podcasts are back, and woe betide anyone who doth not listen to them. I'm gonna have to go soon because I have arranged to watch with Mother. I have the DVD of the My Chemical Romance Black Parade is Dead gig from Mexico City, which we're going to watch at quite a loud volume, no doubt.
Mm.
Have you been drinking? I haven't seen you been taking drinkings.
Oh, well, only one because I didn't get up to get another one.
I'm nearly finished my second beer. Terrible.
I could have brought the rum and the Coke through, but I'd be like 3 drinks in by now.
Yeah. It's always dangerous having them on hand. That's one thing that I'm worried about, actually, slightly with going into schools, is my bladder. Because you can't just walk out of a class to go to the loo. And I seem to, when I'm drinking, I seem to need to go to the loo at least once an hour.
Well, you're not going to be drinking in school, I hope.
Well, no, but teachers drink like coffee and stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
Do they do that in the classroom? Do you find?
What?
In your school? Did the teachers like drink coffee in the classroom, or?
I would say more tea, but yeah, they're able to. I mean, it's different now because COVID's like face mask requirements kind of prevent you from doing certain things. So like, I think in theory, like we would be allowed to bring in drinks and stuff to like practicals if they're not in a lab.
Right. Yeah.
But no one does because it's just inconvenient to go and then have to put back up.
To go mask. What?
I was miming drinking a coffee.
Oh no, I just want to see you do it again.
No, you don't.
It looked just as bad as it sounded. So is this the bit where we do like a false wrap up? Then I can stop it.
I suppose so. I mean, we normally bollock on for about another hour after that.
Go on then, do the wrap up, and then I'll stop it and restart it so that we can do the afterbirth.
Oh, fine, okay.
Oh, we didn't call the beginning bit the pre-cum.
I've had people comment to me that hearing you, my dad, say that is very disconcerting.
This is what I aim for. If I'm not disconcerting someone, I'm not doing my job.
A bit worrying that your job was about to be becoming a teacher, but
Well, don't tell anyone, but that's just a side project. I'm a musician, first and foremost.
well, yeah.
Yeah. I think
Anyway,
go on.
are we doing the outro, or do you want to still say shit?
Oh, silent but violent. Well, I think I just deflated a bit. Do I look smaller? Oh shit, that stinks. Literally.
God, I can't beat that to smell it.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, we did talk about change, didn't we? Quite a bit.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. So
I mean, I could talk a bit more about the process for
oh yeah,
transition stuff for myself,
you
I
could.
guess. Also, just moving out in general. That's a big change for me.
How
I
have you
am
found
somehow
it?
still alive.
Yeah, because at first you were saying it was a bit of a pain having to buy food to get to actually eat.
That's fine, to be honest.
So you get
I'm
used to
managing
it.
with that, but it's more that cleaning. I seem to be generally more proactive than at least one of my. I mean, one of my flatmates just sort of cleaned up after himself,
Yeah.
but that's just my opinion.
Should I guess which one? I'm not gonna, just in case they listen.
I don't think they will. Anyway, yeah. So basically, I had an appointment this morning with a psychiatrist. The kind of system currently for actually going through this is kind of fucked up, to be honest. But I'm glad that I've finally got an appointment, so I'm not too miffed about it. Is that they basically have to get you to prove to a psychiatrist in a session that you have gender dysphoria, so you can be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, for
Presumably
which the treatment is.
they have a way of kind of discerning that, presumably, rather than you just kind of having to, like, a burden of proof on you kind of thing.
Well, they ask you a bunch of relatively invasive questions about how you got to this point,
Yeah.
plus various feelings towards various things, including asking me if I had any thoughts of detransitioning, which I think they have to ask, but also no. It strikes me as a bit strange how much they need to check. But I mean, I got the diagnosis. It's just I am aware sometimes they reject people for fairly spurious reasons, such as they're too depressed to receive treatment.
That seems a bit of a cyclical issue.
Yeah. I mean, I've not heard of any particularly bad stories about the Aberdeen one specifically, so I mean, it's not that big, I would assume.
I suppose. I mean, I suppose I can kind of understand where that coming from, but it doesn't solve the problem that it's highly likely to be causing depression anyway. You know.
Yeah, it's certainly catalyzing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing for me. Like, I think I would have some form of depression if I didn't suffer from gender dysphoria at all. But I definitely noticed that sort of it just makes everything worse having that constant sort of weight on me.
Yeah.
So any time that I'm having a particularly bad time for whatever reason, it's always made worse by gender dysphoria if it's not caused by it in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got the diagnosis, thankfully. In order to actually have like surgery and stuff, I need to be on hormones for at least a year, and living in my gender
Have
for
they?
a certain period of time that I think would be encompassed in that.
That must be a tricky one because, well, first of all, I was going to ask, have they gone into any details about what physical changes you can expect to happen when you're on the HRT, and
I mean,
also,
the person I spoke to was a psychologist, so I asked
right,
them a little bit about the kind of hormones, and they were sort of saying, "Well, I can tell you some things, but an endocrinologist will give you a much better idea
right,
because
yeah,
they actually know shit about hormones, obviously."
mm.
Um,
But the other thing, how do you feel? I suppose, um, yeah, that was what I was going to say. That seems like a see. This is the part of it that I've never been completely got my head around is the combination of trans and non-binary, and that you just said that you have to live in the new gender, if you like. It's not really new, but you know what I mean, in that gender, um, for a certain amount of time. But I've come to see you as not. I've not come to see you as female. I've come to see you as non-binary. So what is non-binary is by definition not a gender, isn't it?
well, it depends. I mean, the way that I experience, I mean, it's just not one of the two that
Yeah,
the traditional view, at least in this country, has told us are the
yeah,
genders that
mm,
are available to you.
yeah.
So it can be a different gender, which
Right.
some
Okay.
people
Yeah.
have, or some combination, or
Yeah. Mm,
there are people who are agender, which
yeah.
means that they, from their experience, have no real relation to gender.
I think that's the difficulty, even for somebody like me who's relatively clued up compared to a lot of people. Um, is like that kind of um, not necessarily knowing what it is that you kind of what role it is that you're being required to inhabit for a certain amount of time. I mean, essentially, you're being asked to be yourself, aren't you?
But yeah, it would be sort of if I went for whatever reason back into the closet, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't see that happening because my life has improved drastically since coming out. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, just to kind of be totally practical, are they talking about just clothes?
no, it just sort of and living at. So, I mean, for me, that would just mean like using Elwing as my name rather than my
Right.
dead name.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because
Um,
there's a lot of people that don't wear gendered clothes anyway, of
but
all
they would.
kinds.
The thing that they did say is that they would want me to be able to present. But I mean, that's the sort of thing. Yeah, most people don't wear gender clothes all the time, so sort of
I know
presenting
plenty
in
of girls
public.
that wear jeans and t-shirts most of the time.
Yeah,
That does that mean that they're dressing like males? But, well, I think see that's kind of a bit of an imbalance anyway, because I feel like females have a lot more choice than males in terms of what they can wear. Because, and that's one of the reasons why I think that women are essentially more sorted than men. Um, I know I'm kind of being simplistic by breaking it down into two genders there, but I do still recognize that there are other options there. It's just that I'm looking at the traditional views, if you like, of but women. You go to the clothing department in a clothes shop. I mean, there's a reason why the women's clothing is occupies far more floor space generally, is because they have so much more choice, including all the same stuff that the men wear. You know.
and it's not just that women need more clothes because obviously everyone needs clothes.
They're just less
It,
emotionally constipated
yeah.
and therefore superior, in my opinion. But
Also,
not
yeah, kind of.
superior, just less. Um,
I don't know what
More
the hormones are
genuine.
going.
Sorry, carry
I
on.
don't know how the hormones are going to interact with my body yet because it's going to be different for different people depending on
Oh Jesus, are you going to have a time
their.
of the month? I mean, I don't mean like in a physical sense. I mean just like in a mood sense.
I think mood swings can be a part of it, but
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, it would be sort of like going through puberty again, but
You're not
differently.
living with any you're not living with any females, are you? Because you would synchronize eventually if you were.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's a thing. That when women live together, they over a period of time, they excuse the pun, their periods eventually synchronize. I don't know why that is, and I don't even know if it's an urban myth. Now I'm saying it to you, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure it's a thing.
I don't know.
Maybe it's because I mean hormones are something that are detected by animals around them, aren't they? So maybe there is a biological connection there. I suppose it would make
I'm kind of,
sense in an evolutionary sense. If you've got women living together, it would make sense if their cycles did coincide from a
it might be a bit
reproductive
of
viewpoint.
like confirmation bias or something, but I don't know. I mean, in other species, there is like a certain time of year that you are supposed to mate.
Oh wow! Have you got that to look forward to? Then you're actually going to go through the change when you're older.
Well, I'm gonna go through.
You're going through a change now, and then you're going to have to go through another one.
I'm gonna go through basically puberty again, but the other way.
Yeah.
But without all the physical functions that a person of assigned female at birth would go through going through puberty.
Have you had any kind of surgery before?
No, never.
So
Not to my knowledge.
That must be. I mean, obviously um, there are obvious positives to be gained through going through that procedure for you, but that doesn't negate the fact that it's surgery, and any kind of surgery, it must be. I'm assuming that's something that you've kind of weighed up, and
I mean,
but
I'll
it
be
must still be
given
scary. I mean, I don't
all the
like going in for
information because you need to be
yeah,
given the information in order to give informed consent for any medical procedure.
right. Because
I've looked into it a little bit, but
I
an
suppose there is.
expert's going to be able to tell me more than my own online research.
I might be wrong, but I'm kind of making this an assumption from a total outsider's point of view that doesn't really know much about it. But I would assume that there is the option to go through the whole process apart from the surgery bit if you don't want to do that. Not that I'm saying that you wouldn't, but I'm assuming that that is an option. You can do all the hormone side of it without necessarily having to undergo the surgery.
You can opt in or out of any part of the process. The only thing is to have surgery, you need to have had hormones, been on hormone replacement therapy for at least a year.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I'm
really pleased for you and very proud, must be said.
And my voice might start changing as well, because the idea for doing the voice coaching, they said to me, is that they kind of want people who go through that to actually be able to practice it and be comfortable speaking in that way. So
yeah, because
they kind of need to be out of the closet.
Well, there's that whole thing like when you're going through puberty the first time round as a male. I mean, not in a. Sorry, I didn't mean to insult you, but I know, as me being a male, I know that whole thing of your voice breaking is quite an embarrassing kind of period because it does just crack and from time to time.
Annoyingly, the hormones, the actually produce like female hormones wouldn't like raise my voice on their own.
No.
Because testosterone, having it for a certain amount of time, just thickens your vocal cords, which is why trans men who take testosterone do get a deeper voice.
Yeah, but I do know from the point of view of like singing voices that the more you use like a falsetto register, the stronger it gets, and the more natural it becomes to sort of sing in that higher kind of register. So
I mean, it's not always about pitch; it's a lot about patterns of speech as well.
Oh right, okay, that's interesting.
Because you can actually be like deeper in terms of tone, but
yeah, I've heard
have
some
different inflections.
I've heard some quite deep voiced women actually. That's especially as they get older. They tend to get deeper voices, but it's fascinating.
But I mean, I've looked at a few of the online techniques, and the main thing is like training your larynx muscle. So like by like holding it like upwards.
Right.
I don't quite know how you do that while you're talking because that restricts your breathing.
Yeah, interesting. But it's fascinating, though. I mean, I'm excited to support you through it, basically.
Yeah, I'm just glad it's actually happening. It kind of came as a surprise to me.
While at the same time being totally open to whatever way it goes, you know, like because obviously that whole process, I'm not expecting it to, but you know, they have to give you the option to adjust or amend or change your mind at any point, don't they? So
one of the things that I did kind of find it a little bit funny. I mean, I get why they ask, but basically saying that the hormones will affect your fertility a lot, and I have no interest in having kids. Well, they recommend before going on hormones that you would freeze your gametes,
right.
i.e.,
gametes.
Sperm or eggs you would preserve.
Oh right, okay,
when you would want to have kids, but
yeah,
I don't know if I would need that if I had no real want for kids, and I don't think that's going to change. And if it did, I would adopt most likely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one that because I know damn well I wouldn't have even been considering it at your age. Probably not for a good 10 years after as well, actually. But yeah, I mean, I trust that you think things through quite carefully, and the fact that you said that if you did, you would probably be looking to adopt anyway is, you know, a responsible kind of viewpoint, I suppose, because there's a lot of kids out there that do need a parent that haven't got one, you know. So not that I'm expecting you will want one, but a kid, but you know, if you did, then that would certainly be an admirable option.
Yeah, it's a lot of changes in my life, at least. Moving out, starting my medical transition a lot earlier than I thought I would get to. I mean, I started my transition already. Obviously, I've socially transitioned by just coming out to everyone.
Yeah.
And,
I found it quite interesting, actually. That
get to grow tits.
Hi. Sorry. Yeah, I found it quite interesting that parent that brought their autistic child in. The parent is actually a professor at the uni, and their child is a PhD student. Both composition based, but yeah, the I say child, they're in their late 20s now, I think. They had an special interest, they call it, not obsession. Their special interest was flags and dinosaurs. Which I think is quite common. I think is a quite common thing with autistic children, is the flags and capital cities, and I don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with patterns and order. I don't know. But dinosaurs as well.
I find that I remember them quite well, more than most people do.
I wonder what it is about dinosaurs, though. I mean, I know they're fascinating, but you know, it seems like a fairly arbitrary kind of, I don't know. Maybe they make more sense than people do.
I mean, most biological things do.
Yeah.
We're very complex organisms, unfortunately.
Yeah, and social structures are 9 times out of 10 a load of bullshit.
I mean, I find the social structures of other animals very interesting.
Yeah.
Bonobos are fascinating.
Yes.
They have actual cultures, bonobos. They have distinct cultures in different groups of bonobos,
Okay.
where they'll have different like hunting preferences. Even put into the same environment, the group that had a different hunting preference from elsewhere will hunt different things.
Right. Interesting.
So they develop actual cultures, which sort of gives an insight into how human cultures arose.
So anyway, yeah,
We
should
were going
we?
to wrap up about half an hour ago.
Yeah, but I felt like it would have been rude of me to kind of deny you the opportunity to talk about proper change that's relevant to you, because that would make me a bit of a cunt of a dad, really, which, as we know, I am actually quite awesome. So, you know.
Yeah, but you're so calm.
Yeah, but that's part of being awesome. I'm an awesome cunt. So do the finishing thing, and then I'll stop it, and we can do the afterbirth.
Just enough of a bastard to be worth knowing.
I'll take that.
It's a quote from Good Omens.
All right, okay. Yeah, I'll take that as well.
Anyway,
I survived without going for a piss mid podcast.
wow. I've been Firebolt,
I've been the Orbiter.
and this has been Breaking Bollocks, episode 81. Changes.
Change is. I thought it was change. Have you
Oh, I
changed
don't
it?
know. Change.
I'll need to know what to title it.
Changes.
And face the changes.
Singing. We should cut this off now.
I think that's what they're going to be saying to you in a couple of years' time. Sorry. I couldn't resist that. I think we're well and truly in the afterbirth now, aren't we? I'm just going to have to choose a snipping point there. I'm sorry.
Fine. It's funny. It's not actually. It's a joke about trans people that's not just outwardly transphobic. It's just funny. So it's nice to hear.
I mean, I've had scissors applied to my genital area, so you know.
Good to know.
Perhaps not quite in as drastic a way, but yeah. So I mean, I thought like, which was a bit confusing because I had no idea what I was thinking about. But I'll try and start again and see if it works better this time. I thought during this afterbirth time we could maybe talk about what's happening. I think it's next week. Well, basically, are you wanting to meet for something next week sometime? Because do you like Dear Evan Hansen, by the way?
Not really listened to it much.
Okay, it's on at the cinema, and I've been asking Nienna whether or not she wants to come on Thursday, but I don't know what your timetable's like anyway. But yeah, it was just whether or not we'll get a chance to meet up before I start my placement, because once I start that, I'm basically going to be, I'm going to be Monday to Friday totally unreachable, and then I say that, but actually, like on a Tuesday, I'll be back in Aberdeen by for about an hour around tea time on a Tuesday, and then possibly coming in occasionally at the weekend if I get a day off here and there. And I'll speak to you on podcasts as well this is fascinating afterbirth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I could chop it off, but I won't, because fuck them. It's an insight into our lives. Wow. Why change what's always worked before?
Very fitting.
Should maybe have said this in the main body of the podcast, but I would like to thank all the millions of listeners for their patience and
Donald Trump,
and say that it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm glad that we have decided to maintain some form of presence on our channel.
Yeah, I'm happy with things as they're going.
Good stuff.
Take it as it comes, really.
Take it easy, baby. Yeah, time to go, I think, isn't it?
I want to stop recording.
Oh yeah, I'll do that then. Any last words?
Sponge.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.